Hello students and welcome to the new module of Human Resources Management. I am Dr. Ritvik J. Gandhe and today we are going to discuss another module of Human Resources Management called International HRM. This is a very important dimension of human resource management. Therefore, it is considered as one of the essential component of human resource management studies and is covered in your first unit. In today's typical module, we are going to discuss 5 important things which are very much relevant to the international human resources management. Now, these 5 important things are: first, we are going to look at what is IHRM. International Human Resources Management is also abbreviately called IHRM. That is, it's a short form of International Human Resource Management. So what is IHRM? That we are going to have a look at. Second important thing that we are going to discuss in this module is what is the domain or what it deals with. Okay, what is the domain of International Human Resources Management? So what exactly it deals with? What are its focus areas? That is the most important thing. Third aspect that we are going to cover in this particular module is what are the typical models of international human resources management. Okay, so third thing that we are going to have a look at is models of IHRM. Now there are 4 models of IHRM that I am going to speak about in a short while from now when we come to this particular point. So the third thing is models of IHRM, that is also we are going to have a look at. The fourth important dimension that we are going to cover is a typical feature of international human resources management, a typical feature or a key feature, one should rather say, that is called global local dilemma. Global local dilemma. So what is global local dilemma? That we are going to briefly discuss, and in the end, the fifth component, fifth essential aspect that we are going to cover in this module is what an HR manager is supposed to do, or what international HR managers are required to do. So the essentials for international HR managers as well as HR team. So basically what an international HR management is supposed to do, that is going to be covered in the end of this particular module. So that is precisely going to be the structure of our talk today. Okay friends, so let us now begin as discussed from the point number 1, and that is what is international HRM. That was our first topic of the discussion. What is an international HRM? So what is international HRM? When you are asked to explain what is international HRM, essentially you are supposed to highlight these many points. Kindly pay attention to this. Now, what is the first key important point? International HRM involves a number of issues not present when the activities of the firm are confined to one country. So essentially, this is not a domain for the organizations which are confined to one country with their operations. So essentially, it is basically a topic for those which are not confined to one country. So if one organization or a firm is limited to a particular region or a country, for that matter, it is not a domain of that particular organization. So the HR department or the typical HR team who are concerned with one particular location, it is not for them. So this is the first most important thing that we need to understand when we describe what is an international human resources management. Second thing, the process of employing, developing and rewarding people in international or global organizations. So international HRM exactly deals with the process of rewarding people, employing people, deploying people and developing them. So essentially the 4 core components of HR: employing, developing, rewarding and deploying. You employ people, you deploy people, you develop them and then you reward them. So all these things in an international context for the global organizations is precisely the point of study in human resources management. International human resources management is concerned with these things. Third most important thing which will highlight what is international HRM is a study or a function in the domain of where the people are involved. It involves the worldwide management of people, not just management of expatriates. So wherever there is an issue of dealing with people from across the globe and not just with expatriates, there comes the role of international HRM. Now the simple question is, what is expatriate and how these people are different from the general international employees? Expatriates are those who are being patronized by other countries other than their home countries. For example, we all are Indians. India is our natural home, right? But when some of us go to United States or in some European country or elsewhere other than India, and there we take the patronage or we are patronized by those countries, those individuals are called expatriates. For example, those who are well settled. So normally well settled people in different countries who are being patronized by the organizations of those countries, they are expatriates. But expatriates are the well settled kind of people because there is a patronage to them. Whereas the normal people, normal labor force does not have such patronage in the foreign land. So therefore, they are a little bit more vulnerable to the international conditions, local as well as international conditions. But here is the point that international HRM deals with the issues of both expatriates as well as the management of other people. Another important point which defines international HRM is the applicability to multinational firms. International HRM essentially applies to multinational firms. As I already told you in the first point, any firm which is confined to one country, the IHRM is not a domain of that particular firm. Next is HR issues of global firms and their regional subsidiaries. Here another important term that you should note is subsidiaries. When essentially we internationalize our business, our work, then the organizations normally tend to shift their size and shape also, and their work culture also. In that part, subsidiary firms, parent firms, special purpose vehicles, such terms are being used. So a subsidiary firm is the one which is basically a subordinate kind of a firm of the main organization. So HR issues are those issues the international HR issues are the issues which are convoluted with global firms and their regional subsidiaries. Then the last point which will define what is international HRM is managing work of parent company but in the local environment. So it is basically the normal human resources management. You can understand it this way, that it is a normal human resources management process but in a local environment. So for example, if an Indian firm is there, say Tata Group of Business or some Indian human service organization, when they operate in foreign lands, then they have to take care of the situations which prevail there. So such things, and they in those conditions they need to manage people. So managing work of parent company but in the foreign environment or in local environment, both the situations. So that is precisely what is international HRM. Now in the next slide we are going to discuss what it deals with. What are the domains of international HRM? The key things that it deals with. First, variety of international organization models. Now, the first and foremost which is important in studying the international human resources management is that you get to study different models which are known as international organizational models, wherein different approaches, different ways of managing people is covered, and there are theoretical classifications for that that we are going to study just after this. Then the other thing which you can say as a domain of international HRM is the extent to which HR policy and practice should vary in different countries. So this is a typical component, the extent to which HR policies and practices should differ from country to country. This kind of an acumen, this kind of a judgment is also a domain area of the international HRM. Third important thing is the management of different cultures and environments. See, when an HR team is working for a global firm or a multinational firm or a firm which is operating a number of areas across the globe, so obviously they are dealing with a lot of issues which are typical to that particular local culture. So adapting with the local environment and conditions and culture is a typical requirement of international HRM. So that is also one important area which international HR focuses on. And then the last key point that one should highlight when we really talk about the domain-specific areas of international HRM is that the different approaches that it uses or that it adopts to select, deploy, develop, and reward. Again, the four core functions: selection, deployment, development, and rewarding expatriates, but at the same time, TCNs also. Not just expatriates, but TCNs. So the different approaches that an HR should have for selecting, deploying, developing, and rewarding both expatriates as well as TCNs. So what is TCN? That's very important aspect. One should always remember TCN. TCN is third country nationals. So they are very different. So in international organizations, expatriates also work, which are again the patronized by those countries where the firm is operating locally or in that country. Suppose a firm from India is operating in US, so the Indians who are being patronized by US government or well-settled kind of NRIs in US, they are expatriates. But those who are not the Indians, but they are working for the Tata Group, for our company, for an example, say some Chinese people or some Australian people or African people, they are called third country nationals. So they are neither from India, so neither they are from the home parent company, home parent organization, home country of the parent organization, and nor they are from the same country where the operation is going on, that is called the expatriates. So they are neither falling in the category of expatriates nor falling in the category of TCNs. So they are also, nor falling in the category of Indians, but they are something third country national. So this TCN is very, very important. Next, we are going to discuss what are the different models of international HRM. Let us now have a look at the different models of international human resources management. As I have already told you that we are going to cover 5 points in this particular topic, and this is the third point of these 5. What are the different models? So in international human resources management, there are 4 typical models which are given by Bartlett and Ghoshal, 1993. Bartlett and Ghoshal, 1993. They talk about 4 different models. First is decentralized federation. Second is coordinated federation. Third is centralized hub, and fourth is transnational model. What are these 4 different models? First is decentralized federation. So the name itself suggests that this basically model deals with the condition where the company is actually working in different locations, and these locations are essentially different countries, but every single unit working in a different country is a separate and independent kind of a unit. And so they are not so much controlled by the headquarters, wherever the headquarter be. So such a situation actually tells about the model called decentralized federation. So there are typical, modeling in international HRM that what condition fits for which kind of a organization. So whenever there is a situation where you have different separate units in different countries, but they are independent and they are not so much controlled by the headquarters, you can tell that this is a decentralized federation model. Second is coordinated federation, wherein these separate units are well coordinated, are well organized or are well in connection, not at all in connection, but they are work in synchrony with the headquarters. So the center point of the company, that is headquarters, develops a sophisticated management systems enabling these separate units to adapt to the local conditions, of course, but at the same time they are very much in touch and in control of the center. So such a model is coordinated federation. So both these models are federations. So one is decentralized federation, the another is coordinated federation. This is more decentralized, this is rather less decentralized. The another two are centralized hub and transnational. Now centralized hub is one step more centralized than coordinated federation. So what happens actually in this model is that a truly global rather than multinational face one can observe, and at the same time focus is on global markets. So the management is unidirectional, the HR management is unidirectional, and there is a strict and strong control of the headquarters over the other subsidiaries or the different branches operating in different culture contexts and environments, of course, which are characterized by the different countries. And the last one is transnational. It means it's a mix of all of three. Wherever there is a requirement, you will adopt the decentralization. Wherever there is a requirement, you will adopt as an HR manager the coordinated federation. At the same time, whenever there is a need, you can be strict and be very controlling kind of an HR practice. At the same time, if the need calls for a complete independence or the local level management of the HR, then even that kind of flexibility is also there. So essentially it is characterized as multidimensional strategic capability directed towards competing globally with local responsiveness. So that is the key feature of this particular type of model. Now remember, these four models are given by Bartlett and Ghoshal in 1993. And there are other models as well, but for this preliminary purposes, we only need to know these four models well, and we should command over these four models. So after this, we are going to discuss what is the typical feature of international human resources management. Now comes the point of a typical feature. As I told you earlier, this is the fourth important point that we are going to discuss in our today's discussion. That is, what is the key feature of international human resources management? Suppose somebody asks you, what do you know about a key feature about international human resources management? You should be able to say yes, and that particular component is global local dilemma. Now in every domain there are certain important things. Similarly in international HR, the one key important thing which is the principal characteristic of international HRM, that is global local dilemma. What is this global local dilemma? Nothing. In very plain and simple words, Harris and Brewster in 1999 referred to this as the global local dilemma. First of all, you should know who has given this term. So this term is given by Harris and Brewster in 1999. They have coined this term, global local dilemma. What is it? It is actually a very simple thing. Organizations have to follow very different HR policies, as you are aware, and practices according to the relevant stage of international corporate evolution. Either they are domestic organizations, local ones, or they are going to be international, multinational, and at the same time global. Now, there is a subtle difference between these four terms. Domestic ones means they are just operating in one environment. International ones means they are operating in more than one environment. Okay. Multinational ones, they are operating in multi, for example, even more than 2, 3, many environments they are operating. And country and legislative and when a country changes, a lot of things changes, including the legislative changes, policy changes, cultural changes, everything. And global environment means typically the presence is across the globe. It means practically in all the continents, in Americas, in South America, in North America, and maybe in African continent, in European, in Asia, and Australia, things like that. So different levels are there. So basically it depends on the degree of the exposure of the organization. The internationalization of an organization varies from its degree of exposure to different countries and different regions and continents. So that way it has been classified. And basically it covers the issue of context to which operating units across the world are to be differentiated and at the same time integrated. So you need to take a call, being an international HR manager, how much to differentiate and how much to integrate. So whenever there is a typical call that one needs to take, it's always a dilemma. It's always a situation of a dilemma, because it all depends on the judgment of the HR team, and typically HR manager, the head of the HR team, how to deal with this diversification, how to deal. So there is always a dilemma while we are discussing the issues of HR. And that dilemma is known as global-local dilemma. To what extent one should be global, to what extent the approach should be local, things like that. So since it's a very common and general phenomena across all international HR teams have experienced it, therefore it's a common feature of international human resources management. And lastly, we are going to just simply sift through some of the important points which an international HR team should be cognizant of or they should perform. That's coming in the end. Lastly, everything is now discussed almost, and it is just basically something, a kind of a tip for you to remember. What are the essential qualities of international HR manager, or what are the essential role specifications for HR who are managing the HR in international conditions. So what an international HR team, division or individual should do and shouldn't do. It has been given by LeBlanc in 2001, and it's a comprehensive list, but the key important point, just to end this particular module with, you should remember at least 4 or 5 or maybe 6 such features, and that will suffice for your discussion. See, the most important thing you are already aware of now is adjusting to country and their differences effectively. So you have to effectively adjust. And international HR management is something about adjusting to international differences effectively. Second thing, international HR should tolerate and adjust to local conditions. It should deal tactically with a large variety of foreign contexts. It should manage local operations and personnel abroad effectively. So local, again, the local global dilemma. And should have deep understanding of foreign institutions, foreign legislations, market conditions, etc. So otherwise international HR will fail. Next, it should be well versed with international negotiations and conflict management situations and conflicts, and of course they should be well aware of the management of those particular international conflicts. For example, many regions in this world are not very peaceful regions, they are conflict zones. So every kind of understanding, one should have a great acumen. And the last thing is, not the last, but one of the important, again, accept the practices that allows operation in the best possible overseas environment. So a complex mix of different varieties, different approach has to be there for international HR management. And this is how we can summarize that what is international HR management, what it deals with, what are the different models, what an international HR team is supposed to be doing, what are its key features. So thank you very much, and I will see you in the next module.